Selamat sejahtera dan selamat sepupu. Fun update. After getting completely destroyed on social media by Shanmugam, the two sisters wrote a little piece called The Parts He Left Out because now they want to be heroes. To have every activist and their grandfather across Singapore, JB and some say Batam say that these people are geniuses. You have like a whole bunch of people writing out pretentious Instagram stories one after another about how your little middle finger and gaslighting activity was actually amazing, wonderful, so subversive. Yay. Now, I've read these books about 4 times by now, but I still do appreciate the value of a good alternative narrative. Which, by the way, I learned about personally from Fahmi Reza when he visited my school for the first time. Even so, just because you're subversive, that does not necessarily mean that you are correct. So here's an alternative narrative to counter your alternative narrative. By the way, with video evidence. Let's talk about the parts you left out of the parts he left out. Alright, let's dive right in. The Parts He Left Out is a chunky document. It is 2,847 words. Wow. Props to you for writing something so long, yet so useless. Oh, whoa. To start off, a bit of context. Our good old Sepupu said that they went to MPS to share concerns about POFMA, and Shanmugam knew that they were willing to wait. If this was not relayed to Shanmugam, then there was an internal communications issue. I guess they wrote this because they want to disassociate from Monday of Palestine solidarity, or for some reason or another, make the world think that they're not Palestine supporter, which honestly I think is a bit weird. I mean, you're wearing press t-shirts. Why exactly do you not want people to know that you're Palestine supporters? Also, why is that the highest priority thing that you decided to list it as the first thing in your entire essay? I don't know. Anyway, I'm not sure about the last part of this first paragraph. Like, do you go for 1 MPS or 2 MPSs? It's not clear. English literature, B-. Also B- because anyway, Shanmugam offered to schedule a meeting with you later, and you actually got a meeting with him to engage about the topic that you wanted to talk about, so congratulations, wow. But now, on a more interesting note, blatant filming and intimidation and alleged encirclement of security staff and volunteers, which by the way a bunch of activists, including this one Asnim dude, has talked about, asking the super deep question, why was bro micked up? As if that's the smartest thing he could say in the entire world. Well, to borrow a phrase from some people's playbooks, in the same way the conflict didn't start on October the 7th, your interruptions of MPS sessions didn't start when you met Shanmugam. It might be kind of starting in the middle here, but he knew what you were doing and he wanted to take precautions against the very real possibility that you were just trying to troll him and compromise him, and he prepared a plan for it. Either that or he prepared a plan to make cool videos like Ong Ye Kung, but whatever the plan was, the audio was good, and he got you guys good. Was it staged for the general elections as some conspiracy theorists seem to believe though? I don't think so. And sorry lah, it's from understanding your interactions with activists, knowing what accounts are saying what, and probably understanding more about your lives than you're comfortable having people know about. Anyway, was it staged? Did you fall into a trap? And even if it's true that he set a trap for you and you fell for it, what do you think, Sepupus? Was it unfair of Shanmugam to do what he did? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, more importantly, you say that the situation only escalated when you started talking about POFMA. Then you ask, we came in good faith and we were perfectly polite, so why were we treated differently from other citizens as if we were a threat? Why don't we look at the evidence?
Sabrina and Afiqah. We can talk about POFMA. You might have to wait because are you my residence? Where do you stay?
Punggol.
You're not my residence.
Yeah, understood.
I only see my residence.
Is it stated anywhere that MPs
Yes.
cannot see? Okay, where is it?
No.
No, yes, no, which one is it? Yeah.
Madam, you've come here for discussion or you've come here to argue?
Yeah, well.
No, yes, no, which one is it?
No, yes, no, which one is it?
You're making it very difficult, aren't you?
You're making it very difficult, aren't you?
Wow! In what universe exactly is that perfectly polite behavior? Before Shanmugam could even explain anything, then you just started trying to trap him in your words. That was the true escalation, and that was where you started going wrong. Even then, it might not have escalated. Shanmugam proceeded to explain the concept of MPS to you, mentioned that indeed you might have to wait. You said okay, but then somehow you proceeded to escalate yet again. Even though you said you were willing to wait, you just couldn't resist the urge to throw out a barb at Shanmugam. No matter his time constraints, without consideration for his schedule, to which you replied with a tremendously polite, "I'll concede to that, but I know it's not true." In what way is that not being deliberately confrontational, creating incidents and trying to provoke? You say that you did not come to start a fight or to disrupt, but I don't know what planet you come from or what definition of politeness you learned when you were in school. Let me tell you for a fact that the vast majority of human beings, if they saw someone talking to them like that, they too would escalate. And to the extent that Shanmugam is a human being and not secretly a highly advanced robot, it is perfectly natural for him to have reacted the way he did. 10 points to Shanmugam, 0 to you. Like, how would you like it, for example, if let's say you conduct an event and then I go up to you and I insist that you listen to me for the next 30 minutes as I talk to you about Mahayana Buddhism and then accuse you of discriminating against me because you don't want to listen to my talk. Even if right now you have 15 urgent tasks and you cannot be having a conversation with me right now. See, right? Whether you like it or not, that's exactly what you did. You then talk about how he checked to make sure you were not doing any audio or video recording, yet his people could create a hostile environment towards you. My question to you is, was he stopping you from recording?
And then you say you were scared, surrounded, you made heart shapes with your fingers, but of course everyone is fixating on the middle finger.
Well, yeah, of course everyone's fixating on the middle finger. You even talk about how it's an authentic response that was released under the circumstances. Like, if that's your authentic response, like the natural thing that comes out from your karma, your education, your experience, then I have to wonder, right? Like, what kind of education did you receive in the Singapore education system? What kind of upbringing, what kinds of things did you learn from your friends and family to the point that your most natural reaction in the face of pressure is to just immediately come out with a middle finger? You did accuse him of lying, that is absolutely true. He also didn't lie to you when he said it was his discretion whether to meet you or not to meet you and you should go to your own MP. You're also forgetting, by the way, that it's not the right time, nor is it the right place. As Professor Oak says in Pokemon, Afiqah, there is a time and a place for everything. But Shanmugam is the Minister of Law and Home Affairs for all the people of Singapore. Are we not also under his care for that? Well, you are. But like, again, not the right time, not the right place, and you weren't restrained from talking to him in any way. You say that it was frustrating for him to imply that you were disrupting when you were trying to have a conversation. Well, yeah, sis. Like, I don't know how little self-awareness you have, but if you talk like that to me, I would have done the exact same thing, and if you had done it repeatedly with multiple different people, I would have definitely instructed every single one of my MPs to do the exact same thing. He gave you no good reason why he couldn't even spare 15 minutes to sit down with you and talk, when he already told you that he cannot keep residents waiting in order to indulge your discussion, which, by the way, doesn't mean that there are not real issues, however much you want to gaslight people into thinking that. You say, by the way, that you have distress for being filmed. To that I say, well, Shanmugam was doing a public service because like the kind of behavior that you were demonstrating was horrible and it deserved to be showcased. Then you say, this is the same man who has been the strongest proponent of the death penalty and insists on continuing the execution of so many people under oppressive drug laws. For your information, drugs kill people. Not that you realize something subtle like that, but anyway. By the way, it's nice that you actually were directing the word coward to Shanmugam.
Then you shouldn't have shouted coward. I went in, I said, you wait, I will deal with them.
Coward because we were being filmed without our consent.
Even as, by the way, you failed to demonstrate any empathy whatsoever, both you and Elijah Tay, who shares an Instagram story from someone who says, oh, it's because of our state capitalist society, therefore, people have to go and talk to their MPs all of the time. Well, have you considered that maybe the fact that Shanmugam is talking to these other people and not to you is proof that democracy is working properly, that the MPs are actually serving the people and not your selfish little project? But I digress. You then talk about how, oh, you wouldn't call what happened when you talked to Shanmugam a conversation. And sure, you can provide this long paragraph right here. I'm sure it'll help with alternate perspectives, which hopefully will be slightly more valuable than your alternate facts so far. But what I'm most interested in is, did Shanmugam ever instruct you not to record? That could be a good clarification, don't you think? Especially since you guys were disputing along the way, and he was literally telling you it was not true that you didn't have the right to record. All I ask is that you do a round 2 with Shanmugam, where you argue with him whether you have the right to record. Oh, and you should record it this time. That'll be fun, don't you think? Next, you say that Shanmugam decided to bring up Palestine was yet another confusing aspect for us. He claimed that we were part of a group disrupting MPS sessions, shouting at various MPS sessions, and that we took MP's words out of context. You tried to explain repeatedly that you did not come as part of Monday of Palestine Solidarity, but he insisted that you did. And here's my interesting question for you. You go to multiple different Palestine events and then you represent MPS there. You post about Palestine on your Instagram over and over again. And then somehow today, when you come over to talk with Shanmugam about POFMA, then somehow you're not a Palestine activist. If I want, then can I, for example, be a part of the Republican Party, quote Karl Marx, and then say, oh, I'm not actually Republican, even though I happen to be a member of the House of Representatives? Because as far as I know, I don't think that that's how that works. But anyway, Monday of Palestine Solidarity rowdiness is a separate matter. You say that if there were residents who were affected by your presence at these MPS sessions, you urge them to come forward with accounts of their MPS being disrupted by Monday of Palestine Solidarity. Well, it looks like you got what you wanted, since now Josephine Teo has come out talking about how you ended up disrupting her sessions at Jalan Besar. How pleasant. Not that you would admit it even if you were being disruptive, hence why you're going into defense mode on Instagram stories. And so as we come to the end of this overly long conversation, or at least you say it's the end of the conversation, not that anyone can believe you, suddenly you start talking about POFMA in relation to Israel, Hamas, CNA, POFMA this, POFMA that. If you really cared about the issues you mentioned back in the previous paragraphs, then why didn't you take the chance to talk about those issues instead of talking about Gaza? And did you get the chance to talk, or did you not get the chance to talk? Because as far as I can see, you decided the topic you wanted to discuss, so anything you said about not being able to get a word in edgewise is not valid.
Anyway, let's suspend our disbelief for your lies for a minute.
Why wasn't POFMA used against CNA? They used Israel-Hamas war when the genocide already spread to the West Bank and countries like Syria and Lebanon, where Hamas is clearly not involved. And here you're like, aha, I can catch Shanmugam. Well, to that I say, didn't somebody say that Hamas can never die because it is an idea? Cut one head off and 9 more will grow in its place. But then you start talking about whataboutism, about how y'all didn't know about the 500,000 deaths in Syria, which you probably should have known about if you actually cared about your Saudari Seagama, which it seems you don't, because the only thing that you've ever learned about is from TikTok and Instagram, to the point that you didn't even know that entire conflicts exist that exceed your favorite double-think, double-speak conflict by an entire order of magnitude, yet you know nothing about it. Next part, it's fascinating that you cried during the conversation. I'm so sorry for that. But I guess my question is, do you expect the man to show you curiosity and respect when you obviously came in with no respect whatsoever, and then you demonstrate that you basically know nothing about the things you advocate for? Min Chan's job is to be correct, not to be nice. It is to be undefeatable in matters of law and Singapore security. Not to entertain your snowflake feelings, which you want to thrust upon the entire world simply because you have nothing better to do. What kinds of quality ideas can you have when you aren't even willing to listen to people? You try to talk over them, and you expect him to show curiosity and respect for your ideas?
Oh, but then you say,
are you not also Singapore citizens? Why do you get harassed by PAP volunteers, the media, when you bring up uncomfortable topics of conversation? Surely the minister would know it would direct lots of hate comments your way. Is this what your politicians have come to? To that I say, good job, Min Shan. Because Home Minister is meant to ensure the security of Singapore, and by exposing what you did on a massive scale, that is how you ensure the security of Singapore, by making sure that nobody goes out and starts talking about this kind of nonsense, making blind accusations, speaking aggressively, in activist rudeness a la Jolovan Wam. But here we come to the last part right here, and this is probably where I felt the most disrespect for you throughout this entire thing. You said in response to being photographed by a CNA reporter and his refusal to delete his very newsworthy coverage of your horrible behavior, perhaps it's because two angry Malay Muslim hijabis make for salacious news. Wow. See, I really have to wonder, right? Why are you exploiting your own race and religion in order to even discuss something like this or try to gain sympathy? Do you know why there are all of these Malay community advocates who are apologizing on your behalf right now? It is because of stupid statements like these that proclaim that you represent the Malay Muslim community, which frankly sounds like you just read a post-colonial book like Black Skin, White Mask, and then suddenly you think that you're freaking Franz Fanon Jose Rizal. Gosh darn, girls. You know, there was a Chinese boy in your video.
I know you have been going to 10 to 11 places to do the same thing. We know exactly what you have been doing.
What did we do?
All you are trying to do is to create a disturbance here.
There will be no disturbance if you would be talking to us in a civilized way.
Wow. What an advertisement. I thought Racial Harmony Day was on July 21st. Add to that the fact that I was once threatened by a pro-Palestinian who happened to be called Anil Raj and also happens to be Indian, working in a tech company in Singapore, Malaysian living in Singapore, trying to exert mob justice,
And trying to dox me for not caring about Palestine, by the way. And who, TBH, I think you should deport for your own safety.
who, by the way, I reported to the police in both Malaysia and Singapore. And there you have it, all the major races, Malay, Chinese, Indian. This is not a race thing. This is a personality problem thing that can happen to people of any race out there, but it's infinitely more likely to happen to people who somehow or another cannot control themselves. Tolong lah. Just because one Malay Muslim commits a sin, it doesn't mean that everybody else has to apologize. It's nice that they're apologizing, but honestly, I think you guys should stop because this is really not your battle. And in the last part, you say, we hate that our government's politics have devolved into mudslinging online fights. What should have been a regular civil conversation escalated, and you are now facing all sorts of harassment, loss of privacy, and smear campaigns by the media. Well, let me remind you that it is completely your fault. You went in after disrupting 10 different MPS sessions for Palestine, for POFMA, it doesn't matter, you disrupted MPS sessions. You gaslight the Minister of Law and Home Affairs, speak aggressively, play victim by writing this 2,847 word behemoth of an essay, try to become a hero even as you say that your middle finger was an authentic reaction to being treated the way you were, with antagonism and suspicion. To that I say, if I ever encounter anyone like you in real life, I would have treated you with exactly the same antagonism and suspicion. I mean, if your genuine reaction to stress is to just pull out your middle finger right away when you are being photographed or you're under pressure, then we have to ask, right? How were you educated? What was your karma? What kinds of thought patterns did you engage in even as you were learning about your religion, fasting, praying, or if we're not even talking about religion, learning about things while you were at home with your family? See, right? The things that you do speak to your habits, your thoughts, and your actions. And what you showed us during this entire interaction is that however good Singapore's education system is, or however kind your family was, it looks like you were kurang ajar and you didn't learn those lessons properly. Anyway, you end this long and epic piece by talking about how you came to talk about POFMA and you were met with censorship. It's a disproportionate response. Activism is not at fault. How could they do this to two ordinary people going to an MPS session? To that I say, yes, there's a time and a place for activism. I think that dissent is very important in society and that people should be able to question their governments. But if you're going to question your government in any way, then please do it with the facts at hand. And if you're not going to do it with the facts at hand, then maybe you can throw away Jovan Wan's advice and learn to be respectful for once. Cause see, right, not only were your actions stupid, and not only were you uninformed, you were literally gaslighting a minister who gave you the time of day, was polite to you, even as you were being aggressive, disrespectful to your elders, and screaming coward, even as you covered your faces with masks so that people couldn't know who you were. You were obviously trying to provoke Shanmugam, and as the Malay proverb goes, siapa yang makan cili, dialah yang rasa pedas. You say, we are not perfect, and we are committed to growing and learning, but we stand firm in our truth and in our faith. Wow. Lakum dinukum waliyadin. But what does what happened here have to do with your faith? As far as I know, nothing, right? It's nice that you have your religion, but it does not validate you and it does not save you from the fact that you behave badly. The way you behave was disrespectful, inappropriate, and even now you demonstrate a complete lack of self-awareness. Because instead of going out there and apologizing to the people of Singapore for your nonsense behavior, you are coming out with your self-justifying activity, thinking to yourself, oh, I am so right, he is so wrong, Shan is evil, my activist friends will support me.
Oh, by the way, speaking of activist friends,
nobody's saying that you cannot support Palestine. It is a fact that you belong to an organization that happens to support Palestine. Which, by the way, you've been behaving really weirdly about. If you support Palestine, then you support Palestine. Why are you going out there and saying, oh, it's not about Palestine when obviously you talk about Palestine in the first place? If you support it, own it. A lot of people are currently saying that Min Shan wasted his time by speaking to you, but I don't think so. Because so long as you're unapologetic and there are people out there like you, it behooves the people of Singapore to know that people like you who do not know manners and do not wish to improve themselves are out there casually yapping day in and day out, thinking that you're fighting for justice. What I suggest to you is very simple. Stop playing victim, stop fighting, literally just sit down for a quick bit and reflect. Sis, lepas you repent for your sin, right, you can come back and you can finally apologize. It will be so much better for you and your mental health. I can't guarantee that Singaporeans will forgive you, but you have to accept that this is the fruit of your actions, and it was not wrong for Shanmugam to do what he did. Seriously, just turn off messages, turn off YouTube, turn off this video. Although if you watched to the end already, I guess it doesn't matter.
Yup, you might as well subscribe.
And take a chill pill, come back 4 years later, maybe people will forget about you, but they will never forget the lesson that you taught to Singapore, Malaysia, and everybody else out there who needs to know that this kind of behavior is not acceptable. Alright, that's it. Thanks and bye.